This video is on aircraft in flight. See, aircraft means there are various things in an aircraft. We will consider here only about the airplane and the helicopters. So, for this I am giving an introduction. Any person associated with aviation should have some understanding of the actual process of flight. An individual who is responsible for the design, constructions and operation or maintenance of aircraft must be thoroughly familiar with the forces acting on an airplane in flight. The components of the airplane that control the flight forces, the reactions of the airplane to its control, and the atmospheric conditions that affect flight. It is therefore appropriate that we study the factors involved with the flight of an airplane and how these factors are related to our activities in aviation. Proper maintenance of an airplane requires that the person responsible for such maintenance have a knowledge of the forces acting on the airplane in flight in order to determine what repairs and adjustments will be needed. It is obvious that any repair to an airplane should be just as strong as the original part. A maintenance technician who knows what stresses will apply to a given part of the aircraft in flight will be in a better position to judge the suitability of a particular repair. For example, on a high wing monoplane, the wing struts are subjected to high tensile stresses during flight, especially if the air is gusty and the airplane is flying at or near maximum speed. These same struts are subjected to compression stresses when the airplane lands. The maintenance technician must therefore make sure that the struts, attachment fittings and adjacent structure are maintained in such a manner that full strength is preserved. The parts of an airplane are classed in two principal categories relating to strength. These are structural members and non-structural members. The structural members are subjected to major stresses in flight and landing, while the non-structural members sustain comparatively small loads. Now, what are the forces on the airplane in flight? First, we will go for the impact and drag. As explained in previous video, air has mass. When an airplane flies through air, the air is moved. When any mass is moved or accelerated, force is required, and the application of force reduces an equal and opposite force. This is in keeping with Newton's law of motion. The impact of the air against the surface of the airplane applies force which tends to hold the airplane back. This is drag, as explained in the earlier videos. When thrust and drag are equal, the airplane flies at a constant speed. Total drag is created by impact forces, skin friction and displacement of the air. In designing or repairing an airplane, one must consider the drag forces exerted on the structure of the airplane. As the airplane flies through the air, the effect is as if millions of tiny particles were striking against the forward parts of the airplane. If the total force of these particles becomes too great for the strength of the structure, damage will result. It is therefore necessary to make sure that the leading edges of the wing, the leading edges of the stabilizer and the forward part of the engine cowling are constructed of material with sufficient strength to withstand the maximum impact forces that will be imposed upon them. Furthermore, the devices by which the parts are attached to the main structure must have sufficient strength to withstand maximum forces. In addition to the impact forces imposed upon the flight surfaces of an airplane, The effects on landing gear, struts and other parts exposed to the direct force of the air must be considered. The effect of air impact on parts of the aircraft that do not contribute to lift or controls is called parasite drag. As explained previously, induced drag is developed by the wings as they produce lift. To reduce the effects of parasite drag, high-speed airplanes are usually built with retracting landing gear. And in the case of modern airplane, the wing struts have been eliminated. Parts exposed to the direct impact of the air are often covered with streamlined fairings to reduce drag. Now, level flight and landing loads. During level flight, the forces exerted on an airplane are at a minimum, however they still exist. The drawings I am giving you will show the forces acting on an airplane in level flight. It will be noted that impact pressure exists at all points where the air strikes the surface from a forward direction. Negative pressure exists above and to the rear stabilizer. The total upward force in bracket lift exerted on the airplane is equal to the weight of the airplane, and the airplane flies in a level flight path. The internal structure of the airplane wing shown in the figure must be such that it can withstand the severe bending moments imposed by the combination of weight and lift. The wing shown is called a cantilever wing because it is supported by at only one end and has no external bracing. Such wings are constructed with sturdy internal members and a stressed skin to support the flight and landing loads. A biplane is constructed with external bracing between the wings to support a large part of the loads that occur during flight and landing. These external supporting members are shown in this figure. During flight, the flying wires are under a high tension stress and the wing struts are subjected to compression stress. Upon landing, the landing wires are under tension and the wing struts are still under compression. The cabin struts are always under compression and the cabin wires are under tension. Now, loads in tons. During maneuvers, an airplane in flight is subjected to much more than the normal flight loads. An airplane is straight and level flight in calm air is subjected to a load of 1 gravity unit bracket g small g, and the wings are supporting only the actual weight of the airplane. When an airplane is divided and then pulled out of the dive, the load factor increases substantially if the dive steep and the pullout is abrupt. The G load may be seen lateral times as great as normal. That is, the wing must be support several times the weight of the airplane. If the airport several times the weight of the airplane, if the wings must be support several times the weight of the airplane. If the airplane is placed in a climb and then turned rapidly beside towards the earth, the load factor may become less than G and loose objects in the airplane will fly upward. A carefully controlled maneuver such as this is used to create a condition of weightlessness to determine how a human being will react in space flight where bodies become weightless. In turns, the load factors on an airplane are similar to those experienced in pulling out of a dive. The reason for increased wing loading in a turn is illustrated in this figure. In this diagram, the airplane is in a turn with a 45-degree bank. Under these conditions, the gravity will still be pulling the airplane down with a force of 1g, and the centrifugal force will be pulling the airplane horizontally with a force of 1g. When these forces are resolved, a resultant of 1.41 g is found. This means, of course, that the wing is required to carry 1.41 times the weight of the airplane. In a 60-degree bank, the load factor is 2. In a 70-degree bank, the load factor is nearly 3, and in 80-degree bank, it is almost 6. It is obvious that an airplane should not be turned with a bank so steep that the safe load factor of the airplane is exceeded. For example, if an airplane has a maximum safe load factor of 4, it should never be turned with a bank of more than about 76 degrees because of the possibility of exceeding the safe load factor and stalling or suffering structural damage. Airplanes are placarded to show the limits of approved maneuvers. Airplanes designed for normal flight purposes are limited to normal maneuvers and are not permitted to perform acrobatics. In order to avoid placing undue stress on any part of an airplane, movements of the control should be made smoothly and gradually. Sudden movements can overstress portions of the structure to the extent that failure will occur. Now, aircraft control. Here there is a nomenclature. An airplane is equipped with certain fixed and movable surfaces or airfoils which provide for stability and control during flight. These are illustrated in this figure. Each of the named airfoils is designed to perform a specific function in the flight of the airplane. The fixed airfoils are the wings, the vertical stabilizer (fin) and the horizontal stabilizer. The movable airfoils called control surfaces are the ailerons, elevators, rudders and flaps. The ailerons, elevators and rudder are used to steer the airplane in flight to make it go where the pilot wishes it to go and to cause it to extreme certain maneuvers. The flaps are normally used only during landings and sometimes for takeoff. Large jet aircraft, gliders and some other type of aircraft are equipped with the lift control devices called spoilers. These are rectangular surfaces mounted on the top of the wing. When it is desired to reduce the lift of the wing, the spoilers are raised into the airstream. Another type of spoiler is a triangular strip mounted on the leading edge of the wing at the inboard end at high angle of attack where stalling would be likely to occur. The spoiler strip causes the inboard portion of the wing to stall before the outer portion. This enables the pilot to maintain control of the aircraft with the ailerons, and the airplane does not fall off on one wing. Now, what are the axes of the airplane? In this topic, axis of the airplane, we will go for the different axes. Now, an airplane has three axes of rotation, namely the longitudinal axis, the vertical axis, and the lateral axis. These are illustrated in this figure and can be remembered by relating them to their names. Longitudinal can be remembered by thinking of the word longways, that is, the longitudinal axis goes longways with the fuselage of the airplane. It may be considered to enter the propeller hub or nose of the airplane and to pass through the fuselage going out at the tail. Vertical may be defined as up and down in the case, and so we can think of the vertical axis as an imaginary line going up and down through the center of gravity of the airplane. For our purpose, here lateral means sideways, and so the lateral axis is an imaginary line passing sideways through the center of gravity of the airplane. We can also think of it as a line going from wingtip to wingtip. In considering the axis of the airplane, it is important to note that all three axes pass through the CG. This is one of the reasons why the CG must be located within certain limits. If the airplane is to fly satisfactorily, in our study of weight and balance, we shall see how the CG location is affected by loading. During flight, an airplane is moved about the three axes by means of three primary flight controls. The ailerons control roll about the longitudinal axis, the elevators control pitch about the lateral axis, and the rudder controls yaw about the vertical axis. Now, first we will go for the ailerons. An aileron may be defined as a movable control surface attached to the trailing edge of a wing to control an airplane in roll, that is, rotation about the longitudinal axis. The conventional monoplane has two ailerons, one attached to each wing. They are rigged so that when one is applying an upward force to one wing, the other is applying a downward force to the opposite wing. The ailerons are moved by means of control stick or a wheel in the cockpit. If it is desired to roll the airplane to the right, the stick is moved to the right or the wheel is turned to the right after the desired degree of bank is obtained. The stick or wheels is returned to neutral to stop the roll. During normal turns of an airplane, the movement of the aileron is coordinated with movement of the rudder and elevators to provide a banked horizontal turn without slip or skid. A slip or side slip is movement of an airplane partially sideways. In a turn, the slip is downward and inward toward the turn. A skid is a movement of the airplane sideways and outward from the fuselage. The correct rigging of the aileron is of primarily importance. After an airplane has been overhauled and during pre-flight inspections, the direction of aileron movement with respect to control stick movement must be carefully noted. If the stick or wheel is moved to the right aileron must move up and the left aileron must move down. Reverse movement of the controls should be the cause of a reverse of the position of the ailerons. During flight of the airplane, a down movement of the aileron causes an increase in lift for the wing and the wing rises. At the same time, the opposite aileron move up and drag rises. At the same time, the opposite aileron moves up and causes to decrease the lift for the opposite wing, and the wing moves down. This action is illustrated in this figure. Aileron control in an airplane is complicated somewhat by an effect called adverse yaw. An aileron that moves down at the trailing edge of a wing creates considerably more drag than the aileron on the opposite wing. The moves upward the same amount. Therefore, if the ailerons were rigged to move the same distance in responding to the movement of the cockpit control, the drag of the downward moving aileron would cause the airplane in turn toward the side on which the downward moving aileron is located. Thus, a pilot wishing to make a left turn would move the control to the left, causing the right aileron to move downward. But the drag caused by the aileron would cause the airplane to turn to the right, except for strong rudder control. To overcome adverse yaw, the ailerons of the airplane are rigged for differential movement. The differential control causes the up-moving aileron to move a greater distance than a down-movement aileron. The amount of differential is sufficient to balance the drag between the ailerons, thus eliminating the yaw effect. The design for differential control is explained in the associated text, for which I will be going in aircraft maintenance and repair. It was mentioned that conventional monoplanes are equipped with two ailerons, one being attached to the trailing edge of each wing. This does not apply to modern jet airliners. These high-speed airplanes usually implies at least two sets of ailerons. At low speeds, all the ailerons are used, but at high speed, only one small pair of ailerons is required because the effectiveness of aileron control increases with speed, and because spoilers are used with the ailerons for effective control at high speeds. A spoiler destroys lift and increases drag. Now, second control surfaces is elevators. An elevator is defined as a horizontal hinged control surface, usually attached to the trailing edge of the horizontal stabilizer of an airplane, designed to apply a pitching moment to the airplane. A pitching moment is a force tending to rotate the airplane about the lateral axis, that is nose up and nose down. When the control stick or wheel in the airplane is pulled back, the elevators are raised. The force of the relative bend on the elevator surface tends to press the tail down, thus causing the nose to pitch up and the angle of attack of the wings to increase. The reverse action takes place when the control stick or wheel is pushed forward. The action of the elevators is illustrated in this figure. During flight of an airplane, the operation of the elevator is quite critical, especially at low speeds. When power is off and the airplane is gliding, the position of the elevators will determine whether the airplane glides at the correct angle or stalls. The pilot must know the stalling speed of the aircraft and keep the elevators in a position that will enable the airplane to maintain flying speed. A safe gliding speed must be well above stalling speed. Otherwise, a gust or quick shift in wind velocity could cause the airplane to stall. During the handling of the elevator control, it is necessary for the pilot to remember that an airplane will not necessarily climb when the control is pulled back. It is the power developed by the engine that determines the rate of climb of an airplane. rather than the position of the elevators. As a matter of fact, if the elevators are held in a fixed position, the throttle alone can be used to make the airplane climb, dive, or maintain level flight. The position of the elevator is important, however, to establish the most efficient rate of climb and a good gliding angle when power is off. It is also most essential for proper control when braking the glide and holding the airplane in landing position. A special type of elevators that combines the functions of the elevator and the horizontal stabilizer is called a stabilator. When this type of control surface is installed on an airplane, there is no fixed horizontal stabilizer. The stabilator is an airfoil that responds to the normal elevator controls and serves as an elevator as well as a stabilizer. Considerable care must be taken to follow the manufacturer instructions in rigging the stabilator. Now third control surface, rudder. A rudder is a vertical control surface usually hinged to the tail post aft of the vertical stabilizer and designed to apply yawing moments of the airplane. That is to make it turn to the right or left about the vertical axis. The movement of the rudder is controlled by paddles or a rudder bar operated by the feet of the pilot. When the right pedal is pressed, the rudder swings to the right, thus bringing an increase of dynamic air pressure on its right side. This increased pressure causes the tail of the airplane to swing to the left and the nose to turn to the right. This operation of the rudder is shown in this figure. Although it appears that the rudder causes the airplane to turn, it must be pointed out that the rudder itself cannot cause the airplane to make a good turn. We remember from Newton's first law of motion that a moving body tends to continue moving in a straight line unless some outside force changes its direction. When rudder is applied to the airplane in flight, the airplane will turn, but it will continue to travel in the same direction as before unless a correcting force is applied. Thus, with rudder only, we find that the airplane skids. In order to prevent the skid in a turn, we use the ailerons to bank the airplane. Anyone who drives a car will know that a bank turn is much easier to negotiate at comparatively high speeds in a car than a flat turn. It is the same with the airplane. To prevent skidding to a turn, the airplane must be banked. Too much of a bank without sufficient rudder in a turn will cause slipping. That is, the airplane will slide down toward the inside of the turn. It is therefore necessary that the proper amount of rudder and aileron be applied when entering a turn in order to produce what is termed a coordinated turn. Usually, after the airplane is placed in a turn, the rudder pressure is almost neutralized to hold the turn. Likewise, it is necessary to reduce the amount of aileron used to place the airplane in the turn. Another factor to note concerning turns is that the steeper the turn, the more the elevator will have to be used. Picture an airplane in a 45-degree bank. The tail control surfaces form an X, capital X, and the nose of the airplane must be held up with an elevator. Thus, we see that a properly executed turn requires the use of all the three of the primary controls. Now there are unusual controls also. We will go for that. Some airplanes have been designed with special type of control surfaces that do not fit into the descriptions of the conventional controls. One such control is called the rudder waiter. The rudder waiter is used on airplanes with butterfly tails, and the surfaces serves both as rudders and the elevators. When it is desired to increase the angle of attack, the control wheel is pulled back and both rudder waiters move upward and inward as shown in this figure. When the wheel is pushed forward, the rudder waiters move down and outward as illustrated. If it is desired to turn an airplane with rudder waiters and right rudder is applied, the right rudder waiter will move down and outward, while the left rudder waiter will move up and inward. These movements will be in response to the movement of the rudder pedals and will provide the forces necessary to rotate the airplane about the vertical axis. The turning action of the rudder waiter is also illustrated in this figure. Another somewhat unconventional control is the elevon. Elevon are combination elevators and ailerons used on the outer tips of some delta wings. When used as elevators, they both move in the same direction, and when used as ailerons, they move in opposite directions. Elevons are especially needed for all-wing airplanes or flying wings. Ailerons that are rigged to serve as ailerons or flaps are called flaperons. When employed as flaps, flaperons are in opposite wings move either upward or downward together. When employed as ailerons, the flaperons move in opposite direction. Now, trim tabs. Trim tabs are especially small auxiliary control surfaces, usually hinged to the trailing edge of the main surfaces. Controllable trim tabs are used by the pilot in flight to adjust the control surfaces so that airplane can fly as desired without holding pressures on the on the main controls. If it were necessary to apply continuous pressure on the flight controls over a period of extended flight, it would be very tiring to the pilot. By adjusting the trim tab for the condition of flight, the pilot need only apply slight corrective pressures occasionally to keep the airplane on the proper course. The operation of a trim tab is illustrated in this figure. The elevator trim tab is moved down by means of the cockpit control. The airstream develops a extending to push the tab up. The airstream develops a forward tending to push the tab up, a force tending to push the tab up. This force is transmitted to the elevator and moves the elevator up, and this change to return caused the tail of the airplane to move down and thus nose to go up. The elevator trim tab control in the cockpit is usually a small wheel or knob arranged so that its plane of rotation is vertical and longitudinal with respect to the airplane. If it is desired to raise the nose of the airplane, the top of the wheel is moved rearward. If it is desired To lower the nose, the top of the wheel is moved forward. The trim control for the ailerons is a knob or wheel with its plane of rotation vertical and lateral. It is designed to lower the right wing of the airplane and raise the left. The top of the knob or wheel is moved to the right. This adverse direction is used to lower the left wing. Now, adjustable trim tab. Adjustable trim tabs are attached in a manner similar to controllable tabs. However, they are adjusted on when the airplane is on the ground. If the pilot reports that the airplane is nose heavy, tail heavy, or wing heavy, the tab can be adjusted to correct the condition. It is possible to adjust tab of this type only so that the airplane will fly satisfactorily under one set of conditions. These conditions are usually those established for normal cruising power and speed. Now, balancing tab. A balancing tab is linked to the airplane in such a manner that a movement of the main control surface will give an opposite movement to the tab. Thus, the balancing tab will assist in moving the main control surface. Balancing tabs are particularly useful in reducing the effort required to move the control surfaces of a large airplane. Servo tab. A servo tab is one that is directly operated by the primary controls of the airplane. The control moves the tab and the tab in turn develops forces which moves the main control surfaces. This system is also used to reduce the effort required to move the control on a large airplane. Wing flaps. Wing flaps are hinged or sliding surfaces mounted at the trailing edges of wings and designed to increase the camber of the wings. As explained previously, the purpose of flaps is to increase the lift of the wing at a particular speed and angle of attack and also to increase the drag. Wing flaps are particularly useful in the used in the approach to a landing to increase the gliding angle and decrease the landing speed of an aircraft. During cruising flight, flaps are streamlined with the wing to offer a minimum of drag. On small airplanes equipped with flaps, the flaps are used most often for landing and the landing approach. In some cases, however, the flaps can be used for takeoff. Now, balance of control surfaces. Aircraft control surfaces will function properly on the airplane only if they are properly balanced. Static balance is accomplished by installing weights forward of the hinge line of the control. Usually, static balance requires that the sum of the weights forward of the hinge line is approximately equal to the weight aft of the hinge line. The methods of checking the balance and adjusting the weights are provided in the manufacturer's maintenance manual. Now, dynamic or aerodynamic balance. It is accomplished by designing the control airfoil such that aerodynamic forces during flight will tend to balance moments forward of the hinge line with moments aft of the hinge line. This is accomplished by placing the hinge line substantially aft of the leading edge of the control surface and by extending a portion of the leading edge surface a considerable distance forward of the hinge line. New airplane direct from the factory have the control surfaces statically and dynamically balanced. However, if a repair is made to control surface or if the surface is painted, it is necessary to check the balance against the manufacturer's specifications. Balancing of control surfaces is discussed in the associated text, which I will go for in aircraft maintenance and repair. The need for proper balance of control surfaces cannot be overstressed. If a control surface is out of balance, either flutter or vibration will occur to the extent that the aircraft structure may be damaged. Even with a small amount of flutter or vibration, flying an airplane is very tiring and unpleasant. Now, aircraft stability. The definition is very much clear. We will go for another video for that.